And I wondered what you thought of the system as it is without the coaching. Because then we see, well, what's the coaching do?
The system without the coaching? The system without the coaching, would that mean without the logs?
No, with the logs. So you're
But without the responses to
with
them?
no responses. You know, you just
Would they
did
be
like a
marked?
diary or something, and you'd have your essays marked, by an academic. Like a typical online course.
Read a few books on leadership.
Yeah. So it wouldn't really carry much weight. The system by itself, the WebCT materials and the phasing.
I mean, I think that it's that WebCT is a fairly limited system for online learning. To be honest with you, I think it's basically just text online, effectively.
Yeah.
There are more sophisticated forms. Rather. I'm not really. I'm just giving a.
No. I think.
I'm actually, rather proud of having done it, and so. But I, going as a critical sense, I think
that's
quite a lot of improvement that can be made in the material. But I think it is the coaching relationship that makes the difference.
Yeah. So
and it probably is worth the money in that sense. But for if you knew what you were going to get, and you had £17,000 to spend, I would find another way to give me the same result.
Yes.
Unless I really, really wanted the letters.
Yes, which is probably what some people do want.
I did.
Well, I think it would be useful.
Because it is an academic course. You see, I tend to think I have a frame of reference which tends to be more leaning towards personal development and executive development, rather than academic toning, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I always tend to forget that the MA is embedded in a higher education environment, and it is, as much about developing academic skills as it is about actually becoming a better leader.
Well, where do you think the balance is as things stand?
And I think I think just about everybody who does the MA wants to be a better leader.
Yes, that's why they're doing it, not for the MA.
I think they like the rigour of that, and that is part of it, isn't it? I mean, being able to think clearly and think things through a bit better by the end of it, perhaps, is a good discipline.
Yeah. But as it stands, the WebCT system as it stands by itself, without the coaching, it's mainly an academic.
I just think it's a text.
Yeah, it's not really about practice so much. It's the coaching.
It's a text, but I could give you a handout with that in text, and it would be exactly the same thing. All it is just online.
Yeah. Well, yes, because I mean, when you don't do logs, if people don't do logs, they just write essays. It does show in their essays because they're not getting engaged.
The logs are useful, but I think they probably get more effort because you know that they're going to be responded to.
Yes. Yeah, this is how I throw something out and something will come back.
Yeah.
Which to me that is probably the energizing process.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Something I noticed in the feedback you gave, which I didn't sort of feel we ever really addressed it directly, was this issue of the imposter syndrome.
It's definitely around building confidence. It's definitely. I think for a lot of people it's to do with the scale of what they're facing, which feels to them which is an emotional sense. And I think that one of the problems with a lot of academic study around leadership, for me, in learning, is that we're always trying to rationalise it. And a lot of, I think, leadership, useful leadership development, development's not what you want to talk about really, is it? But is actually it's not rational, it's emotional. It's got a huge amount of feeling content, emotional content, politics with small p content, power struggles.
Messy, just sort of happens.
Yeah, but it's all about the dynamics between people, which are about hugely how people feel.
Yeah.
I mean, how people respond on a daily basis to anything that they're asked to do, I think is tinged by their feelings about it.
Absolutely.
And I just feel that whole area is just often missed. in leadership development because it's actually difficult to get people to talk about it.
And it's also very micro, you know, it's the sort of very intimate, moment by moment thing, which is invisible most of the time. I mean, it's not invisible to you or to me, but really when you think about leadership development, that bit is kind of down there somewhere. You know, we're working up here or even up here. But I'm just thinking in terms of the MA, you know, thinking about, assuming it goes on, I think it would be very...
In university doing it.
Absolutely, so you experience
different.
Yeah, because I think the student thing is nervousness about, am I able to do this? Not I'm an imposter.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just,
well, and I think that very much goes on right the way through to the end of the MA for me. For me, it did.
Never
you know, even I mean, but probably at its absolute height, and I do think this was shared by everybody.
Yes.
You know, right up to the sort of the middle of the dissertation, because that's the big lump. Can I get over the hill? Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's true because you know, a couple of guys have just started their dissertations now, and I know from the Phase 7 work, particularly the one guy, that's what you need to do, but he's sort of got...
And I just did it I personally did it by saying to myself, I put everything, you know, making a decision, and that was to put everything to one side. So I did put my life on hold for 5 months.
Yeah.
You don't think so?
No. I didn't know that you had. It's just you did an awful lot of work. I must say, you know, all that reading.
No, I did. I'm from March last year until the end of September. May, June, July, August, 6 months. You know, I didn't do anything else. I mean, you know, the bare essentials to, you know, still be on speaking terms at home.
Well, it is, yeah.
I mean, the amendments to your comments on my draft took me every spare minute for 3 weeks.
Gosh. Well, I was going to ask you to what effects some of this has had.
Every woken minute of spare minute of doing the minimum I could get away with here. It took me 3 weeks. Yeah. But I was very grateful for that because, in fact, that was what gave me the steer more than anything that I needed. What I really needed then was another month to then bring in my own, you know. Because, I mean, I really, there's a huge amount of work to get that drafted before I went on holiday, and I knew it was just, you know, for you it was just, well, he's just dumped all the research on me, you know. I actually had a huge amount of work to put that in.
Yeah, it was a lot. Anyway, let's move. Just continuing with that. Let's move to, because one thing I have to spend more time on figuring out is this coaching relationship and the impact of the coaching on the process and what leads to that impact and so on.
Do you want this, by the way?
Yeah. So I think of the various people I've spoken to, the various students I've spoken to, you've come up with quite a useful metaphor, this idea of conditional and unconditional regard, which you responded to in one of...
Which comes out of my understanding of, I think that language has come out of the kind of
the psychodynamic,
psychotherapeutic training that I've done.
Yeah. I mean,
which you know anyway.
Yeah, I'd be interested in just going into that a bit more because you've in the note you wrote, you had some interesting phrases like whatever it is I do, and we can come back to that. You talk about the level of detailed attention to my work, and then you talk about this conditional and unconditional. But you use a phrase like over time, this kind of sustains a relationship that steadies the buffers in terms of the quality of reflection. Yeah, that's one phrase used. And then later anchors the experience of learning around an interactive experience.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've been carrying around some sort of image of what happens over time between coach and coachee in the way we work, and because a lot of it's virtual and asynchronous, it's quite hard to know what it feels like. But when you wrote that sort of made sense to me, because what I have in my mind is a sense that we're creating some kind of a zone of experiencing and discussing, which allows you and allows me to make the most of whatever it is that happens. So if there's some idea you're exploring and I offer some comments on it, whatever we've created, this sphere or whatever, allows you to think about it in perhaps a slightly different way, a less defensive way.
It does.
And
But it also changes, it is helpful in shifting kind of mindsets.
right.
And sort of paradigm thinking, because I'll say something reflectively in a log,
Yes.
which I'm quite pleased with, and I think I've done, quite a reasonable, quite,
Yeah.
I've thought about it quite hard, and then you, as the coach, will actually put quite a different slant on something,
Yeah.
which probably because you're not just reflect. I think that it's also quite powerful because you're not just thinking about in this particular study
Instance. Yeah.
in this particular study of leadership.
Okay.
You're not thinking just about academic content and subject and sort of topical
What you read
issues.
this week. Yeah.
It's often about personal practice, and so that's
Yeah.
quite
Yeah.
deep, really. And,
Yeah.
it's very personal.
Yeah.
And